Okay guys, in this lessons we're going to go over the 6 trigonometric functions of an angle. Okay, so let's look at this triangle right here. Now before we start, let's go over like how to label our triangle, especially when it comes to the size, right? So right here, the one in yellow, we call this one's right here the hypothenuse. Okay, so we're going to, let's say that's H. And the blue side right here, we're going to call that, we're not going to call it a side, we're going to call it opposite, because according to this orange angle right here, across from this is the opposite of that angle, right? So we're going to call that opposite, or O. And from this angle's perspective, this side right here, the green side, we're going to call that adjacent. Okay, so we've learned this in geometry already, so this is just reminding you of how to label the triangle. Okay, now in geometry you also learn about sine, cosine, tangent, their ratio. So just to refresh your memory, for sine is always opposite over hypothenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypothenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, and then the next trig functions, this is something new you've never learned before, but CSC is cosecant. So cosecant and sine, they're related to each other, so all you have to do is flip the ratio. So for cosecant, it's going to be H over hypothenuse over opposite. Okay, secant and cosine, they're related to each other, so again, flip the ratio, hypothenuse over adjacent. And then for tangent, it's going to be adjacent over opposite. Okay, so it's important that you know these ratio by heart pretty much. Okay, so here I'm going to move on to number 1, and I'm going to do the problem. Okay, so in number 1, from this angle's perspective right here, this angle's perspective theta, we have opposite from it is a 10, okay, and adjacent is 6. And notice we don't know what the hypotenuse is, so we're going to use the diagram and solve for that missing length first. Okay, so using a squared plus b squared equal to c squared. A and b, they're legs, and c, they're the hypotenuse. Okay, so now plug it in. We have 6 squared plus 10 squares equal to c squares. 6 squared is 36 plus 100 equal to c squared. 36 plus 100 is 136 equal to c squared. I'll write this, flip this around. Then to get c squared by itself, we're going to take the square root to the left and to the right. Don't forget the plus or minus. Square root of c squared is c, and then we have plus or minus here. 136, let's break this down. That's going to be 4 and 34, and then 34 is 2 and 20, 2 and 17. Okay, so c equals to plus or minus square root of 136 is 4 times square root of 34. So since we're talking about length, our answers can only be positive. So square root of 4 is 2, and then bring down the square root of 34. So that means the hypotenuse is 2 square root of 34. Okay, now we have enough information to find all the 6 trig functions. Okay, so sine theta. Sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. And opposite is size 10 over 2 square root of 34. Okay, and notice in 10 and 2, they're the outside number. We can reduce this further, so we have 5 over square root of 34. And right here we have square root of 34. We're not done. That's not our answer, it's not yet. So to get rid of the radical, we're going to multiply top and bottom by square root of 34. So I'm running out of space. Let's move up here, okay? So I have 5 square root of 34 over square root of 34 square. And square root of 34 square is 34. So for sine theta, it's 5 square root of 34 over 34. Okay. And then cosine theta will do the same thing. It's going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 6 over 2 square root of 34. And notice the 6 and 2 we can cancel out. We get 3 over square root of 34. And since we cannot have a square root at the bottom, we multiplied by square root of 34 over square root of 34. Then our final answer is we're going to get 3 square root of 34 over 34. Okay, that's for the cosine. And this is for the sine. For tangent, it's opposite over adjacent. So the opposite side of this angle is 10 over the adjacent, which is 6. And then reduce, you get 5 over 3. Okay, now let's go to the other answers. Now, for the cosecant theta and the secant theta, there's the easy way and the hard way to do this. The easy way is to convert, to get the ratio from here, and then flip it, and then you get the answers, which is square root of 34 over 5. Now, the harder way is flipping from this answer right here in green. You could do that too. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means you have to show more work to get to the answers. Whereas if you flip from here in the yellow part right here, then you show no work, okay? So same thing with cosine theta. I'm gonna flip from here. Then I get square root of 34 over 3. And for tangent theta, flip the answers. You get 3 over 5, okay? So that's how you do this problem.